Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. On behalf of everyone at Rev.io, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Before we begin the presentation, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, audio will automatically come in through your computer speakers. However, if you're having trouble using your speakers or unhappy with the quality of the sound, you can also dial in via phone number and access code listed on the screen. Second, a recorded version of this webinar will be emailed to you within 2 weeks. Third, we will be having a Q&A session at the end of the event. Please submit your questions via the GoToWebinar control panel at any point during the live presentation. For those of you joining us, welcome. Today, Matthew Ray and Aman Sharma from CloudSmartz will be sharing key strategies for establishing the foundation for telecom innovation. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Matthew and Aman. Matthew is head of marketing at CloudSmartz and has been in the telecom industry for 15 years, focused on digital marketing and support of market development, digital content creation, and bridging the gap to collaborate with sales and business development teams to enable digital transformation for next generation service providers. Aman is Director of Digital Customer Experience at CloudSmartz. He is responsible for Acumen 360, a foundational digital experience platform that enables telecommunications service providers of all sizes to quickly deploy digital customer journeys and introduce SD-WAN-based on-demand automated services and digital operational efficiencies. Now I'll turn it over to Matthew and Aman.
Thank you, Delaney. Hi, my name is Matthew from CloudSmartz. We just went over the introductions, and I want to take you through what our agenda is going to be over the next 30 to 40 minutes. We're going to talk about quickly on the current state of telecom and where we've seen challenges and headaches from the CSPs that we talk to in the Tier 2, Tier 3 space. And then we're going to go into the building blocks on what it means to set that foundation for telecom innovation as you're going on your journeys for digital transformation. We're going to focus on discussion points around a single pane of glass portal, discussion points around end-to-end automation, and the third point, discussion around on-demand services through virtualization. We'll then summarize up what the future state for telecom innovation and digital transformation means, and then we'll take some questions and answers. So as we kind of set the stage here, this is where we see some of the data out there. This is right from Gartner's CIO agenda for CSP industry insights, where we see drastic digital disruptions in exploding capacity requirements, some issues on plummeting price points, digital consumerization, that emergence of 5G and IoT being disruptive, having more demand needed, and having OTT controlling competition of that data. So all of these are items in the digital world that the CSPs really need to kind of come forth and find what that solution is to solve for that. As we continue to set the stage, knowing some of those data points in play, a lot of these challenges might be on your list as well. You have some customer churn. You're going through M&A integration issues. It might not just be one, and you might have a conglomeration of 5 or 6 different companies over the last 5 to 10 to 15 years. Your customer bases are demanding more. You have old infrastructure, siloed processes, disparate systems, and limited traceability. All of those are headaches that really is tough for the increased demand on provisioning and data and services that your customers are looking for. They're moving to competitors that have their kind of digital expertise down, where they can order and deliver on demand these services. And a lot of times you might not have IT budgets that fit to be able to move down your journey, and we'll kind of talk about that and how those building blocks could really help you set the stage to get there and remove some of these headaches and challenges that you might have today. When we look at this slide here and the clients that we do speak to, today a lot of them are in this largely disparate system architecture. And we try to move folks to this loosely coupled, highly coherent architecture. Folks are in the middle of it now, or they've hybrided the approach. But the way we see it today is that the architecture and systems are rigid, slow, closed, complex, and expensive. They've put a lot of money into it over the last 10, 15, 20 years. So keeping those systems running because they are so unique to that company is very, very important, not just from a cost perspective, but from really the bottom line. And so we move towards this transformation to a target state to be more flexible, to be faster as far as development updates, and a little more agile. To be open with integration to applications and on the OSS BSS side and systems that they have today, to be more standardized, and obviously to be more cost effective at the end of the day, because your strategy and your folks from the top are looking to figure out a way to reduce CapEx and OpEx to help hit the bottom line as the price points are plummeting, as the demand for new services are coming in. It's not just a one-size-fits-all. So we've got the background, we've kind of set the stage on where we want to try to get to. Now we're going to talk about why a bold response is critical. A lot of that is really for the survivability in this digital world because it's moving even faster and customers are demanding more. So we feel that service providers must try to take advantage of some of these opportunities. Now there's a lot on here and you probably don't have to do all of these. But there's probably a checklist of some fashion where you might have this on your strategy in 12 months, 3 months, or 5 years out. So the opportunities such as transforming digital customer experience or wanting to deploy on-demand products through a customer portal. How do you do that? Enabling global virtual networks, creating that zero-touch workflow, zero-touch provisioning through fully automated operations, driving disruptive innovation, and executing profit improvements. These are some of the key points that we see executives looking to solve for, and the managers that are tasked with that from a product and IT perspective to be able to solve for as well. So a quote here that kind of matches what we just discussed is 85% believe that their top business driver is to deliver an improved customer experience, which will lead to positive top and bottom line growth. 90% of telecom providers believe that integrated cloud-based platforms accelerate time to market. So as we head back to these building blocks to drive telecom innovation, we're going to see these 3 different layers of single pane of glass, end-to-end automation, and on-demand services. This is a target architecture that we talked about that's loosely coupled and highly coherent, where you do have a modular microservice-driven architecture integrated into existing systems today, so it's not a rip and replace. Single portal orchestration through on-demand services all the way down to the network. We can call this more about a port-to-portal view. We'll get back to this as we go through some of the details, but this is what we're going to be speaking to over the next few slides. So building block number 1, single pane of glass. The concept here is pretty straightforward, is you want a single accessible platform from a customer perspective, but not just a customer perspective, also for your partners, for your operations, and for the network side. So it's consolidation of account management. It's future-proofing what you could put into this from a product perspective, a trouble ticketing perspective, and all the other OSS and BSS overlays that you have today. I'm going to ask Aman to see if we can add a little more color on here on what she's seen today and clients that she's worked with, and what this really means as far as a building block for telecom innovation.
Yeah, hi, Matt. Thank you for the handover. My name is Aman, and I'm from CloudSmartz. And in continuity, I would say there's a very interesting use case that I'm currently working with one of our clients is how multiple portals, how a lot of technology at their end, while they are growing, is becoming very difficult for them to manage and scale. So think about it, they manage services and they have tons and tons of technology at their end, wherein they do data backup and recovery, they do security services, and they do a lot of other security and managed services related services. And they have so much tech stack at their end that they have to give approximately access to their customers of 10 different portals so that they can, manage their backups from here. They could go and monitor 10 things from different 10 portals. They could go to a different portal to log trouble tickets and probably to a sales portal to go ahead and see what their ticket is doing. So it is basically blocking their way in terms of they're not able to scale it further as an organization. So we're working very closely with them. We're trying to get everything together and trying to give their customers one single glass of pane where they could come in, check all their services. They can actually go ahead and monitor all their services from one glass of pane only. Though that is being integrated back with multiple omni-channels and other vertical portals. But yeah, that's one of the problems we're basically trying to address for them so they can scale better. I hope that helps.
Perfect, Aman. Thank you. And that's actually even more troublesome than I put on here, that there's actually 10 portals that company is rummaging through and having to support from an OpEx perspective, just not keeping it alive, but also from a people perspective. So building block number one is how do we get to that single pane of glass? And we're going to move on, and we could do Q&A at the end just to make sure we have enough time. So as we talk about this customer-facing area and this top-level area, we go a little bit deeper into end-to-end automation. So telecom innovation is not possible without a comprehensive layer of automation underpinning systems, infrastructure, and services. Automation is key to unlocking the full potential of a cloud-based portal. Overhauling, automating, and better integrating OSS, BSS platforms and modules in this fashion will empower telecom companies to deploy services and realize faster revenue than ever before. So you see this theme of continuing to drive innovation in telecom from the portal, from the services, and from full automation. So building block number two is we talk about end-to-end automation. The concept here is we drive this top-down automation that helps apply flexibility and drives on the network side for open source controllers and orchestrators, making this true self-service possible. It helps make the operation side a little more fungible and flexible to what you're doing. To have this end-to-end automation, we still like to talk about this so-called new highly coupled and loosely coherent modular microservice architecture. So we can move items around, such as a billing system you might have today, and you're looking to integrate with Rev.io's billing system. How can you do that by minimize the disruption at the company from internally on the network side as well as to your customers? And being able to have this architecture in place helps minimize that disruption and still utilize what you have today. Some of the core pieces on this automation side are related to OSS to BSS are these 5 here, especially more on that network side where we talk network configuration and view and telemetry, fault management, API management, service provisioning, and network inventory. These are all pretty key things to any service provider. Whoa, I think I lost control of the keyboard there. Hang on one second, guys. Okay, we're back. So these 5 things here are really part of that piece that really drives that port to portal on end-to-end automation. Once again, I'm going to hand off to Aman to see if we can add a little more color and some experience that she's been working with some of the clients she works with on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, probably I'll just add on to another experience that we have with one of our clients where they had multiple portals in their back office to manage everything. And I take an example. For example, an order comes for activation, the service needs to be provisioned. They had a lot of swivel chair processes within their organization. to go ahead and track the orders, to go ahead and chase billing people to start the billing for the service, which has been activated already. And guess what? They have 17 billing systems. So consolidating the information, like which order information goes to which billing team, who's responsible to do what orders, all that process becomes so cumbersome for these telecom companies, and it basically adds to their operational costs so much that there's a delay in service provisioning, and there is a delay in billing, and sometimes the customers are being billed not correctly. So all that chaos can be resolved very quickly if all these vertical systems again can come and start to talk to each other, or at least talk to one single glass of pane architecturally. And the back office of telecom can be more efficient in terms of operational capabilities with that.
Perfect. Thank you, Aman. Yeah, so really it's removing the swivel chair to really get as close as you can to the zero-touch provisioning. It doesn't have to be done overnight. You can phase it and go section by section or team by team. But at the end of the day, when we talk end-to-end automation, that's exactly what we're doing is the coordination, integration, and translation between these layers that are in between the network all the way to the customer portal. Thank you, Aman. So building block number 3, we're going to talk about virtualization and on-demand services. Virtualization is the final piece of achieving telecom innovation and digital transformation. We talk about 3 big things and 3 benefits that come out of this. Flexible agility, scalable workloads, automated control. And what that really means is simplifying IT operations, service delivery across the board, where you can scale up your workloads to save costs, so you're not overspending, such as on-demand bandwidth, or you're able to maybe drag and drop or implement a firewall through a few clicks of a button, where you're enabling a virtual firewall, you're configuring it, and you're buying it, and you're putting it out to multiple locations at a time. This is what you can get to as you get to this building block number 3 and strive for additional innovation in telecom. And then being able to build that on open standards and flexibility. That modular architecture that we talked about earlier helps with that portion, where you can have multiple SD-WANs, you can have multiple VNFs, and an entire marketplace eventually. Not everybody needs all of that, depending on your audience and who you support from that perspective on the enterprise and small business side. But there is a lot of opportunity here when we get into that. This will be our largest section. So it really is a lot of information here, and probably one of the most interesting things from a revenue generating perspective, or being able to enable and productize SD and NFV services. So we talk about the traditional data center today. We're talking compute, network, and storage. You might have any server have hypervisor in there, but you might be locked in to a vendor-specific software or hardware. On the network and the storage side, where you can only do certain things. They're absolutely getting better and a little more flexible. Some are even offering other items on top of that from a software layer perspective, where you can add on some more of their services or some other white label services or white box services in here as well. But this is what your typical data center would look like. And as we move into this more software-defined data center, we're able to support the enterprise customer demand and really create a more business-defined data center. And what that really means is that we're allowing them to have a little more flexibility and control, layered with security across the board. They can scale when they want to scale. They can scale back when they want to scale back. It's centrally managed based on open standards and fully orchestrated all the way from port to portal. That helps drive intent-based networking, that helps drive virtual storage and compute, that helps drive policy-driven automation and management. There's a lot to get there. It's not just a bunch of words on the front end, but this is where you can get, and this is where we strive with our customers to get to enable more of these on-demand services. So when we get there, another term we like to call is next generation services. We enable these to drive that end-to-end automation to open the floodgate for on-demand offerings, and there's really a lot of offerings. For SD-WAN, for example, there's probably a dozen or so vendors out there that have different offerings, and we'll go into that in a second. Which one do you choose? Can you choose more than one? Do you even need SD-WAN? What does it really do for you? Software-defined data center offerings, Cloud Connect offerings. Are you connecting to Google, Azure, or AWS? Can you do more than one? Can you pop in applications connected to the cloud and be able to enable that to your branches in your portal today? You may or may not be able to, and that's what we can get to when we are able to scale and automate your systems on the back end. We'd like to talk about this from a perspective of being able to still work with your legacy systems. So that could be your CRM, that could be your billing, that could be everything else. It can work with what you have today. You don't need to rip and replace. For this particular conversation, I'm only going to focus on these three things. This is where a lot of our clients really focus on. It's more or less being more saturated in this area. Where we have SD and NFV offerings, we're talking bandwidth on demand, we're talking data center interconnects. For SD-WAN offerings, that's talking your branch locations and being able to offer up additional services in those areas quicker, faster. And then BNF applications talking about your virtual CPEs and virtual firewalls and what that marketplace can look like, where you can drive and your customers drive that information through a portal. When we talk software-defined networking, this was setting the stage of what we had before. Switch and router connect to the apps all the way down to the control and boarding plane. After that, we take away that connection and have it a little more flexible to be able to shift that network control away from the physical controller. And to drive that, you could have, whether it's an OpenFlow enabled switch or delivered through NetConf or P4 on top. There are other ways to do this and to do it quickly with your current existing switches or with new switches that you might want to get. So the WAN before the WAN, switches and routers have to be configured manually on a per device basis. Again, our concept here is we want to drive zero-touch provisioning. So instead of going out and touching and hitting all these different locations that you may have, and it could be costly in travel, it could be costly in getting errors, it could be costly in time. We drive this more centralized control directly into the network where you can configure the switches and the routers directly through interface. And that's where you want to get to. I know Aman has to leave in a moment here. So SD-WAN, I'm going to go into. Aman, can you speak to this for a few moments? Oh, may have already lost her. So SD-WAN allows for expanded network flexibility, improving application performance at the branch offices, as well as other remote locations. So what this is allowing us to do is to expand those offerings, not just at data center, but now out to the branches that connect to the network as well. What we can put together from a vendor agnostic abstract overlay can be with a variety of players. Some I've listed below here: Nuage Networks, Cloudify, Telari, which just got acquired a little bit ago, Juniper, FatPipe, Versa. These are ones that we've worked with before. These are probably ones, if you have SD-WAN today, that are on your network today. And yet that's another portal. We can pull together for the single pane of glass and actually do an overlay back up into a single customer experience. But SD-WAN offerings is another on-demand service that goes through. And the whole concept here, giving back the control back to the telecom provider. There's two different points here. On the left, we talk SD-WAN technology risk for the enterprise. Are they choosing the right one? doesn't match the performance needs that they're looking for? If something fails, what can be fixed? These are all risks that they have on their checklist on what they look for something. But if now the CSP is able to enable SD-WAN through the network, through the portal, and deliver that on-demand experience, now it's more of a managed service. Now it's available from a functionality, security, and resilience perspective. It's answering all of these risks and challenges that they have on their end, wanting to solve for that disparate connection, and the CSP can help manage that and actually operate that on their end for another revenue generation positioning. And then virtual network services or virtual network functions. VNFs come in a variety of packages. I've talked about a few. It could be virtual security, it could be virtual firewall, it could be virtual CPE, and all of those can be driven down through a management orchestration layer down to the network, across to the data centers, and across to the edge of the network, and driven down through where the enterprises are as well. And this next screen is kind of interesting. This is an example of a concept of IT in a box. There's a lot on here, but if you wanted to go all the way down and you want to deliver SDN services to your clients, you want to deliver NFV services to your clients, SD-WAN to your clients, you can create that and create that marketplace of on-demand network services. You can also create on-demand data center services. So we're talking software as a service solutions such as Salesforce, such as the G Suite, ServiceNow, Atlassian, FreshBooks or QuickBooks, even GoToMeeting. All that can be enabled through a platform for your clients. And for other applications that go on from an infrastructure perspective, you have access to Amazon, Azure, OpenStack, etc. The options are yours. This is more of being able to take it to that next level of what can you deliver on demand. And when you do that, you really want to make sure you have your hands on it, and you have the data and the details through performance analytics and management. So you have remote access, you have alerts, you have reporting and analytics, you have performance monitoring, you have governance and SLAs, all driven through the platform, all driven through these connected services. It really is something great when it is working from an end-to-end perspective. But from a building block perspective, if you set these three things in motion with a single pane of glass, end-to-end automation, you can then deliver these on-demand services and create that dynamic for telecom innovation for your clients. So in closing, the next few slides are going to wrap this up. We talked about single pane of glass. A lot of times that's customer focus, internal or external customers. The second area is product. We talk about next generation services. We talked about three of them. We talked about SDN, we talked about SD-WAN, and we talked about VNF. All of that, again, being connected to your current OSS and BSS systems today, so the integration and the fungibility of it is smooth. And then down to the network, we're really driving the automated network and control, where you have use of an open source controller, and you have use of OpenFlow enabled switches, or switches that can be configured through NetConf to drive these automated next generation services back up through the digital customer experience portal. So if you set the stage, this is where you can get to. From an architecture standpoint, this is the same view as we just saw, but a little bit deeper than where we can drive that omni-channel engine, connect it to that microservice manager where you have your OSS and BSS components, connected to your enterprise service bus. It could be MuleSoft, could be WSO2, where now you're having that translation back down to your lifecycle service orchestration engine. And again, you don't need all these. Maybe you just want to do cloud orchestration. Maybe you just want to do bandwidth on demand. But the options are there for you. That goes all the way down to the networks and the controllers. On the left, we talk about integration to existing systems, where you might see where you have BMC Remedy, or you have Salesforce, or you have the whole Microsoft suite. All of that is the whole concept of being connected to what you have today, including maybe your Rev.io billing system. And all the way on the right where you have security from network to portal. You have alarm or fault notification, you have analytics and reporting. This could be your future state architecture as you move forward to really drive on-demand services through a single pane of glass and having that end-to-end automation. A few more slides here. As we talk about all those details, this is really what it could look like from a checklist perspective. We call this typical IT application landscape. This is kind of what we see when we talk to our clients. When we talk about portal and intelligent front office, you have CPQ, you have account management, you have APN, NPN, and VFM, and FBS. You have e-commerce, you have CRM. Below that is more of your OSS and BSS, where you have HR administration, billing management, accounting, credit and collections. On the other side, you have service and trouble ticket management, inventory, provisioning, order and workflow. All of that, this whole concept that we're talking about really drives the automation of services, but the automation of workflow. And as you go down to the software-defined networking, this is where we get into what we just discussed on SD-WAN controllers, VNF managers, and SD-WAN elements, and so forth. And that's driving more of your LSO or lifecycle service orchestration. This is just a snapshot or a checklist that we like to review and showcase. So why do we do this, and why do we think this makes sense for telecom innovation? Well, these three building blocks are really a synopsis of what Gartner positions in their hype cycle for CSP operations. Their positioning is to really enable a lot of this is you need to invest in additional capabilities. You need to craft a target blueprint, and we need to transition gradually through that target model. We just went through all that. We talked about the different capabilities. We talked about what that target architecture and blueprint will look like, and then what's that phased approach to get there. This hype cycle here is rather interesting, and again, you're not going to have everything on this list on your strategy. There might be just 2 or 3 things, maybe you have 10. But this showcases in their research where it will plateau. There's a lot of blue dots in here, 5 to 10 years, so there's still time in a lot of this. Intelligent automation, it's happening. People are doing it. A lot of the larger tier 1s are doing it. Some tier 2s are doing it. They're moving that to get there to stay ahead of the curve. But there's a lot of work in between, and there's a lot of customization because it's not really a one-size-fits-all. You have different needs for your audience. You have different systems. You have homegrown systems. A lot of that takes a lot of effort to not just integrate, but release and make sure everything is working to limit disruption across the board. But I do like to bring it back to this piece here that more or less proves where we're at and where Gartner thinks it is, and it really is everything we just touched on. So how do you set the foundation for telecom innovation? With these 3 things, we feel at a high level really do that. Single pane of glass portal, end-to-end automation, and on-demand services through virtualization. So we feel if you're there, you can create new revenue streams and improve that customer experience. And at the end of the day, you're innovating, and you're in this this term of digital transformation, moving that forward. Forward-thinking service providers will be able to bring more customers on board and be ultimately more competitive in their marketplace offerings with more features, differentiation, and easy-to-use interfaces. Your clients use that today. You need to get there, and this is how we think you can get there. From a CloudSmartz perspective, we'll just summarize up who we are. We're a partner of Rev.io, and we've been in the business from a CloudSmartz perspective for about 6 or 7 years. For being in the telecom business, the majority of our team has been in the business for 15 to 25 years. We started with some larger companies and global companies such as Global Crossing, Exo Communications, and Frontier pre-2000, and worked through that up until about 5, 6, 7 years ago. Our team, we have clients in North America, Europe, and Asia. We have a development center that we're building eventually in the United States, and right now a lot of our work is actually done out of Chandigarh, India, and a lot of these teams are in Chandigarh and Gurgaon. This is actually a new center that we built and moved into just a few months ago, and it's really a great group of people. I had the chance to get there in December and in April, and hope to go to next month. But at the end of the day, we do drive and seek out dynamic, disruptive leaders who want to reimagine, innovate, and reinvent. That's it for today. We're going to hold for a moment here and see if there's any questions and answers we want to go through. Delaney, I'll hand back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Matthew and Aman, for your time today and for sharing these key building blocks for telecom innovation. Before we begin the Q&A portion of the presentation, I'd like to thank our audience for joining us today and review a few housekeeping items. The first reminder is that we're always interested in topics that you'd like to learn more about, so please submit your topic ideas in the Q&A box. In addition, the full webinar recording will be emailed to you within 2 weeks. Lastly, if you've submitted any questions during the presentation that don't get addressed in the live Q&A, we will begin following up with you individually via email. Now, I'd like to ask a few questions from our audience. Can you expand more on what it means to have modern microservice architecture and why that is important?
Sure. I'm going to actually go to a slide in the appendix because I think this will be a little more interesting to see. So, a little more detail than what we shared a few minutes ago. From a microservice architecture standpoint, what we mean by that is that the pieces within that OSS and BSS can be more or less replaced a little bit quicker than you would if you hard coded it in there and you hard developed it in there. It allows flexibility for your systems and your platforms, such as your CPQ, your order management platform, your product catalog, inventory, etc. Where you can pull out different your ticketing system. If you have BMC Remedy today and you have another ticketing platform that you want to replace, if you have that modular microservice-driven architecture in place today, you're able to more so replace that a little bit quicker than you would to in the past. So it's really coming up with that integrated, automated OSS and BSS orchestration.
Regarding the on-demand services like SDN and NFV offerings, is there a particular requirement that is best from a switch and SDN controller perspective?
It's a good question. So you do need to have a controller to enable the on-demand services to the network. There are open source controllers out there, such as Open Daylight and ONUS. One that we particularly have, I've done with clients is one called Open Kilda. It's relatively new, and it was put together by an actual service provider, and we kind of helped them along the way, and we've continued to enable that and put that into production with the clients that we have today. From a switch perspective, a lot of times it's to make it really easy. If you have an OpenFlow enabled switch, we're able to move rather quickly to make that happen, because now you have that software on top to help drive that end-to-end automation. If that's not your cards, there's always the opportunity to enable a connection with NetConf. And I know P4 is another perspective that's going on today that's gotten a lot of news lately as well. So that's something to look into as well.
You talk about single pane of glass. Is that the best starting point? What if I already have a customer portal today?
Good question. So a lot of our clients that we speak to do have the customer portal all set. They're good to go. They've already condensed their portals, and then that's all what they have. The next step would be, if you're not delivering those services, the product team hasn't enabled productization, monetization of what you've done on the network side. Maybe talk with the product teams to see how you'd be able to monetize and productize that for those clients. Is the demand there for your clients first? And then work with the product teams to see where that stands. And if you can bring that to life up through that same portal. That's when you'll get into the end-to-end automation. That's when you'll get into driving on-demand services.
We've already started down this digital transformation path with a few vendors. How long do you think it should take to pull together these building blocks to drive a more robust experience?
So it goes back to it's not a one size fits all. So it's very hard to say it'll take 3 months, it'll take 12 months. It really all depends on your situation because it's going to be unique. But I would think typically for the folks you're working with, if you can't get it done within 12 months, I think you need to look somewhere else because a lot of these details, nothing's really broken on the inside. You just need to help extending and automating those workflows. I think 12 months is a long time. If there's something more around the 6-month time frame, even if it's a phased approach for a 3 to 4 month time frame, that's probably where you want to land. Because at the end of the day, you're probably going to be pushed on your end. But if you can get it done within 12 months, I think you'll still be on the right track.
Great. Well, again, thank you, Matthew and Aman, for your time today.
Cool. Thank you very much for the invite, and we look forward to a future webinar.